If you were paying attention to Hollywood comedy just a few years ago, there was one name you couldn't escape: Amy Schumer. She wasn't just a comedian, she was a movement, a bold, unapologetic voice for women in comedy, a headliner who filled arenas, landed Netflix specials, and even starred in blockbuster films. But what happens when the very persona that catapults you to fame becomes the reason you fall? Today, we're peeling back the layers of one of Hollywood's most traumatic career collapses, the story of Amy Schumer's rise, reign, and reckoning. Now, before we jump into the downfall, let's rewind to the beginning, because as every great story goes, it all started with potential. Amy was born in 1981 on Manhattan's Upper East Side, the daughter of well-off parents who ran a successful furniture business. Her early years were comfortable, the kind of lifestyle that most comedians only joke about later. But that comfort didn't last. Her family's fortune vanished when she was just 9, and her parents divorced soon after. A familiar story in Hollywood. Childhood comfort turned into early instability. And for Amy, that instability would later fuel a craving for attention, validation, and maybe control. During her college years, Amy studied theater and started drifting toward stand-up comedy. By the mid-2000s, she was hustling on the New York circuit, performing at dingy clubs for small crowds who had no idea they were watching a future superstar. Then, in 2007, she got her first real taste of national attention, Last Comic Standing. She didn't win, but she placed high enough to be noticed. Her act was raw, self-deprecating, and brutally honest. She joked about her life, her body, her relationships, things women in comedy were often told to avoid. It was risky, but it worked. And this is where Amy started to carve out her identity. She wasn't trying to be glamorous or likable. She was trying to be real, or at least what audiences believed was real. She leaned into a new wave of comedy that blurred the line between empowerment and self-satire. By 2012, her stand-up special, Mostly Sex Stuff, catapulted her to mainstream recognition. It was edgy, shocking, and often uncomfortable, but it felt authentic. People thought, finally, a comedian who says what we're all thinking. That's a powerful illusion. Then came the Hollywood moment every comedian dreams of, the crossover hit. In 2015, Amy starred in Trainwreck, a semi-autobiographical comedy directed by Judd Apatow. The film made over $140 million globally and turned Amy into a household name. She wasn't just performing jokes anymore, she was the joke, the hero, and the punchline, all rolled into one. Critics praised her as a feminist icon. Time magazine listed her among the most influential people in the world, and major brands lined up to work with her. For a moment, Amy Schumer could do no wrong. But here's where the story turns. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall, and Amy's pedestal was sky high. Around this time, cracks began to show. Some people loved her fearless, raunchy humor. Others called it repetitive and self-indulgent. A few started noticing something even more troubling. Some of her jokes sounded eerily familiar to those of other comedians. Small online forums began comparing clips, and soon videos appeared compiling side-by-side jokes that seemed almost identical. Was it coincidence? Was it influence? Or was it plagiarism? Amy denied it completely. She said she'd never steal jokes and dismissed the accusations as misogynistic attacks. Maybe she was right, or maybe not. But public trust works like glass. Once it's cracked, it rarely looks the same again. The internet doesn't forget, and soon her once adoring fan base began to question everything, even her authenticity. And then came another turning point. Amy started using her comedy platform for politics, a risky move for any entertainer. During the 2016 election, she gave passionate speeches supporting her preferred candidate, and while some applauded her activism, others felt alienated. A now infamous show in Tampa saw hundreds of fans walk out after a politically charged segment. Suddenly, Amy wasn't just a comedian, she was a polarizing figure. Now, it's one thing to be controversial. Many comedians thrive on that. But what hurt Amy's career wasn't just controversy, it was fatigue. Audiences began to feel like they were hearing the same jokes, the same themes, the same punchlines. Her 2017 Netflix special, The Leather Special, was supposed to be her comeback. Instead, it bombed. Critics called it uninspired. Viewers called it repetitive. It got review bombed online. Some blamed internet trolls, others just said the magic was gone. And here's where I think the real tragedy lies. Amy built her career on being self-deprecating, making fun of herself before anyone else could. But when the criticism finally came for real, she didn't laugh it off. Instead, she fought it. She dismissed it. She blamed the audience. That's when people started to tune out. Because once the audience feels like the joke's on them, the laughter stops. To make things worse, her film career stalled. The follow-up to Trainwreck was I Feel Pretty, a comedy about a woman who hits her head and suddenly believes she's beautiful. The concept was meant to be empowering, but the execution fell flat. Critics accused it of sending the opposite message, that confidence only comes through delusion. For someone who once stood for self-acceptance, it was a harsh irony. The movie underperformed, and her reputation took another hit. Then came the stories that made her public image even harder to defend. Social media posts complaining about fans after posing for photos. Tone-deaf interviews. A few old jokes resurfaced that didn't age well. One by one, these little moments chipped away at her relatability. That girl next door who doesn't care what people think persona was now seen as detached, privileged, and defensive. And that's the fascinating part of this story. Amy Schumer didn't implode overnight. There wasn't one big scandal or dramatic meltdown. It was a slow erosion, 1,000 little moments that together painted a picture of someone who'd lost touch with what made her special. If you ask me, and this is just my take, Amy's downfall wasn't about her being unfunny or controversial. It was about evolution. Comedy evolves, culture evolves, and the people who last the longest are the ones who evolve with it. Amy's early comedy worked because it felt brave. Her later work felt like a rerun of her own material. When your brand is built on honesty and vulnerability, audiences can sense when that honesty starts to fade. But to be fair, not everything about Amy's career should be remembered for the lows. She broke ground for women in comedy. She proved that female comedians could sell out arenas, headline movies, and dominate the conversation. Her early specials gave a voice to topics that were often avoided, and in that sense, she made space for others to follow. Today, Amy still works in the industry, just not at the scale she once did. She's acted in smaller films, produced content, and even spoken about her experiences in Hollywood with a sense of humility that was once missing. Whether this is the start of a quiet comeback or just acceptance of a new chapter, time will tell. So, what can we learn from Amy Schumer's story? Maybe it's that success built on being raw and relatable can't survive without evolution. Maybe it's that fame magnifies not just your talent, but your flaws. Or maybe it's just a reminder that in comedy, as in life, timing is everything. Because in the end, Amy Schumer's greatest strength was her ability to make people laugh about her flaws. And her biggest weakness? She stopped finding them funny.